The snow had started early that year, blanketing the neighborhood in a hush that felt heavier than usual. To anyone else, the Langley house looked warm, a porch light glowing amber, smoke curling from the chimney, laughter spilling faintly through the windows. But from where I sat, the warmth felt staged, like a photograph that no longer belonged to me. I sat in the rocking chair by my bedroom window, the same chair I had once used to nurse my son when he was an infant. Now, 40 years later, it creaked under my weight, and the sound felt like an old friend reminding me of a truth I hadn't wanted to face. The house no longer carried my name with tenderness. Downstairs, Sabrina laughed at something on the television. The sound drifted up faint, like waves hitting a shore I no longer stood on. Once, I might have joined them. Now, I let it pass through me, like wind through broken glass, and my phone buzzed. A message from Dolores, my oldest friend. Skyview will feel like breathing again. I didn't reply. I just smiled. Dolores always had a way of putting truth into words I wasn't brave enough to say out loud. That's when I reached into the drawer of my vanity and pulled out a pad of sticky notes. My hand shook slightly as I wrote a single word in careful ink. Departure. I pressed it against the mirror, right beside my reflection. For the first time in years, I looked myself in the eye. And for the first time, the woman looking back didn't flinch. I had even added a date beneath it that morning. 10 a.m. A reminder not just of when, but of who I was. The suitcase sat by the bed, its worn leather edges softened by decades of journeys. It had traveled with me through every major chapter of my life. Our honeymoon in Oregon, the college tour with Travis, the funeral in Ohio. Now it would carry me through one last journey. Not away from something, but toward myself. The latch closed without a creak, only a whisper. It's timed flashback. Sacrifices made. It's easy to forget, looking at Travis now, grown man, husband, expectant father, that once he had been my whole world. I remembered sitting in that same rocking chair decades ago, his feverish head against my chest as I hummed lullabies through tears, begging the night to give him back his strength. His father had been away then, always away, work trips, conventions, excuses. I carried the weight of two parents on one spine, and though it bent me, it never broke me. I worked double shifts at the library, sold hand-knitted scarves in the winter, and kept the books balanced so Travis could have every opportunity. He wanted soccer camp. We found the money. College tuition. I liquidated what little savings I had from my parents. He never lacked. Not for love, not for security, but children don't keep score of sacrifices. And somewhere along the way, those sacrifices became invisible, present day. The first sign. A knock pulled me back. Mom. Travis's voice was muffled through the door. You see my tablet? I swear I left it in the kitchen. I opened the door a crack, the hallway light spilling across his tired face. Pajama shirt askew. One sock missing. My grown son, still asking me to help him find his toys. Try the couch cushions, I said softly. Oh, right. Thanks. He turned without another word, already scrolling through his phone. My presence already forgotten. The door clicked shut. I sat back down, the creak of the chair louder now. Below, I could hear Sabrina again, her voice crisp, commanding, even in laughter. She had that way about her, filling a room with ownership. To Travis, she was the sun, to me, a shadow. And then, just as if to underline the truth I'd been hiding from myself, she called from the kitchen. We're out of the prenatal vitamins. Can you pick some up next time you're at the store? Her words weren't cruel, but they weren't kind either. They were dismissive, automatic, like I was a housemaid whose presence was assumed. I stepped past her, pulled open the drawer with the pens and notepads, and slid out a single envelope. My voice was even, almost gentle. You'll have to manage without me. She blinked, confused. It was as if I'd spoken a foreign language. But I didn't wait for her reply. Upstairs, Travis's voice was rising from the study. Another argument? A video game? I didn't care, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't listening for him. I was listening for me. Mr. Leland. By mid-morning the next day, I stepped onto Main Street. The sky hung low, gray as wet cement. Maple leaves clogged the gutters, their damp smell rising with each gust of wind. Leland and Associates was exactly where it had always been, between the stationery store and the shuttered barber shop. The polished brass handles gleamed as though the decades hadn't touched them. Inside, the scent of varnish and old paper wrapped around me. The carpet was new, but the weight of memory was not. "Mrs. Langley," Mr. Leland greeted warmly, standing from behind his desk. His glasses slid slightly down his nose as he adjusted them with steady fingers. "I've taken care of everything, just as we discussed." He slid a folder toward me. Inside, property transfers, asset consolidations, and the foundation charter. The Langley Art Grant. I traced my fingers over the embossed lettering, my throat tightening. "He would have liked this," I whispered. Mr. Leland nodded. He believed in doing something quietly but meaningfully. "You're honoring that." I signed each line, my hand steady. My name, my choice. When it was done, he looked at me with that same quiet kindness he always had. "You're doing the right thing, Meredith." "I know," I said. My voice didn't shake. "But it's strange, isn't it? How doing the right thing can feel like turning away from everything you once called home." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Back home. Shift in the house. When I returned, the house felt colder. Not physically, but in spirit. A place can know when you've chosen to leave it. I placed the suitcase upright near the door. It stood there like a sentinel, daring me to falter. I in the kitchen. The casserole dish from Saturday night sat clean and dry on the rack. I wrapped it in a towel and slid it into the cupboard. It would not be used again. Not here. Sabrina glanced at me from the fridge, phone in one hand, bowl of dry cereal in the other. "We really do need those vitamins, Meredith." Her voice was lighter this time, but I only smiled faintly, because I had already spoken my last yes to her. Upstairs, Travis's voice carried again. But this time, I didn't go to him. I went to the mirror, looked at the sticky note still clinging to its glass, and whispered to myself the only truth that mattered now. Departure. Clapperboard Act 2. Escalation and Entitlement. The first snow of December clung stubbornly to the eaves, half-frozen icicles bending like tired soldiers. Inside the Langley house, warmth was a performance. Sabrina moved through the kitchen with the efficiency of someone who believed she was queen, while Travis drifted behind her, restless, distracted. I had begun to notice how little they spoke to me, and how often they spoke around me. The small slights point one morning, I padded down the hall with my mug of tea, the steam rising against the cold. Their voices floated from the kitchen. "Mom won't mind. She always covers it." Travis said. I froze, listening. "She's got retirement, she's fine," Sabrina replied. "Besides, she owes us. We've been here taking care of her house for how long now?" I leaned against the wall, the plaster cold through my sweater. "Owes you?" The words coiled in my stomach like a slow, bitter snake. When I stepped into the room, Sabrina's smile was thin. Travis didn't look at me. He was already reaching for my car keys on the counter. "Need to grab a few things from the store," he said, casual. I didn't answer. I only watched his fingers wrap around the keys, the same keys I had once used to drive him to school, to practice, to college visits. Now, they were tools, not symbols to the first demand. That evening, Sabrina slid a folder across the table during dinner. "What's this?" I asked. She smoothed her blouse before answering. "Prenatal expenses. Insurance covers part, but not all. Vitamins, special tests, copays. You'll help, won't you?" It wasn't really a question. Travis chimed in without looking up from his phone.
"Yeah, Mom."
"You've always been there. We can't do this without you." The way he said it wasn't gratitude. It was assumption, like asking the sky for rain. I glanced at the folder. Neat printouts, highlighted lines, totals circled in red. They had prepared this, not as a request but as an invoice. "I'll look it over," I said calmly. Sabrina's eyes narrowed just slightly. She hadn't expected hesitation, the quiet preparations. That night, I opened my laptop at the old oak desk upstairs. The glow of the screen lit the sticky notes still on my mirror. Departure. Dolores's email blinked in my inbox. Skyview still has one opening for January. Don't wait too long, Meredith. I clicked reply, my fingers steady. Reserve it. I'll be there. Then I opened the folder from Mr. Leland. Each page was like a key sliding into a lock. Accounts shifted. Titles moved. The foundation funds secured. Everything sealed under my name and my choice. When the time came, Travis and Sabrina would find that the cupboards they thought endless were bare. The slip of the tongue point 2 days later, I overheard Travis in the living room. He was on the phone, pacing. No, man, it's fine. My mom's basically bankrolling us. Yeah, she'll cover the down payment once the baby's here. She always does. I pressed my hand against the stair rail, forcing myself not to walk in. The urge to shout, to demand, rose hot in my chest. But I stayed silent. Silence was power they didn't recognize yet. When he hung up, Sabrina looked up from the sofa, her hand resting on her belly. You shouldn't talk about it like that, she said. Why not? It's true, Travis muttered. She smirked. Just don't slip when she's around. No need to scare the wallet. The word cut sharper than any knife. Wallet, not mother. Not Meredith. Wallet. I stepped quietly back up the stairs, my heart steady now. Each word they spoke was fuel. Each cruelty another brick in the wall I was building between us. The shattering moment. It came during breakfast on a Sunday. Sabrina was scrolling her phone, Travis pouring orange juice. I had made pancakes, habit not affection. You know, Sabrina said lightly, we've been looking at bigger places. A nursery and office. Something nicer. Closer to downtown. With your help, we could close by spring. With my help? I asked. Of course, Travis said quickly. Mom, come on. You've got plenty. What else are you going to use it for? I set my fork down, the silver against porcelain ringing louder than their voices. Do you remember, I asked softly, what your father used to say when you wanted something too big for us? Travis frowned. What does that have to do with? He said. If you want it, you earn it. If you can't earn it, maybe it isn't yours to have. Silenced, Sabrina's face pinched. That's outdated. Things don't work like that anymore. No, I said, standing. But love does. Respect does. And right now, both of you are bankrupt. I walked out before they could respond. Upstairs, I closed my bedroom door, leaned against it, and let the tremor pass through me. Not weakness. Released, foreshadowing, the letter. That evening, as snow fell in slow, silent sheets, I returned to my room. A paper lay just inside my door, folded neatly, an O envelope. No name that I picked it up, felt the uneven handwriting under my fingertips. The words inside would come later, but the presence of it, waiting for me, was enough. A reminder that even in the darkest turn, there is a thread of change. The orchid symboled on the windowsill, the orchid I had sketched at Thanksgiving stood taller now. One bloom fully open, others still curled in green fists. I touched its stem gently. Fragile. Resilient, rooted, like me, clapperboard ACT3, the intervention. The snow that morning looked clean from the window, but underneath it, the ground was slick. I knew better than to trust appearances that I sat at the kitchen table, stirring my tea long after the sugar had melted. Across from me, Sabrina scrolled her phone. Travis wasn't home yet. The silence between us wasn't companionable, it was brittle, like glass under strain. Finally, Sabrina said, without looking up, rent's due next week. Can you transfer early? I didn't answer right away. I folded the spoon across the saucer and stood. You'll need to handle it yourselves. Her head snapped up, her face pinched in disbelief. Excuse me? You heard me. The silence after was heavier than any argument. Mr. Leland's quiet presence. That afternoon, I sat across from Mr. Leland in his office, the brass handles on his file cabinets catching the winter light. You followed everything we discussed? He asked. I nodded. The transfers are complete. The grant account is untouchable. The rest consolidated. He pushed his glasses up his nose. Good. Then when they come asking, you won't have to lie. You'll simply say, there's nothing more to give. I swallowed. It feels strange. like cutting away from my own child. Mr. Leland leaned back. You're not cutting away. You're drawing a boundary he never learned to honor. Sometimes, Meredith, survival looks like cruelty to those who've grown comfortable with your sacrifice. His words settled heavy, but steady. When I left, the wind bit at my cheeks. But for the first time in weeks, I didn't pull my coat tighter. Dolores's warning. That evening at Skyview, Dolores intercepted me in the hallway. You've got the look, she said, tapping her pen against her palm. What look? The one people get when they're about to do something their family will call betrayal, but history will call survival. I smiled faintly. You sound like you've done this before. Twice, she said briskly. First with a husband, then with a son who thought I was his personal credit card. Her eyes softened. They'll try guilt next. Be ready. Guilt's the last rope they'll throw before they realize you've already climbed out. Travis's first crack, it came late one night. I heard the thud of his footsteps before the knock on my door. Mom? His voice was tight, frayed. I opened it a crack. His eyes were red, his hair unkempt. Can we talk? I stepped aside. He sat on the edge of my bed, his hands clasped, knuckles white. They called from the bank, he said quietly. The loan application got denied. They said our credit isn't strong enough. But he looked at me, desperation bleeding through. You could co-sign. Just once. It would change everything. I sat across from him, folding my hands in my lap. Travis, I said softly, I've helped more times than I can count. And each time, it hasn't changed anything. Do you know why? He frowned. Because you don't trust me. No, I said firmly. Because you don't trust yourself. His jaw tightened. So that's it? You're just gonna let me drown? I stood, moved to the window. Outside, the snow fell steady, unhurried. I'm not letting you drown, I said. I'm stepping out of the water you've been pulling me into. He stared at me for a long moment, then stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Sabrina's contempt. The next morning, Sabrina cornered me in the hallway. Her belly pressed against the fabric of her dress, her arms crossed. You think this is noble? She hissed. Abandoning your own son when he needs you? When I need you? You're selfish. I didn't flinch. No, I said quietly. I've simply stopped being your plan B. Her lips parted, then shut tight. She turned sharply, muttering under her breath as she disappeared into the kitchen. The orchid bloom. Back in my suite at Skyview, the orchid stood taller. 2 blooms now, both open, white petals catching the light like paper lanterns. I touched the stem gently, whispered, Keep going. It wasn't the orchid I was speaking to, foreshadowing. The letter arrives that evening. When I returned from Skyview, a folded sheet of paper lay just inside my door again. An O envelope. No name. This time, I opened it. The handwriting was uneven, shaky. Mom, I don't know if you'll read this or if you'll keep it. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed to write it. He spoke of late shifts, of cold mornings, of learning, slowly, that love wasn't currency, and that maybe, finally, he understood. I folded it carefully, slid it into the drawer beside my husband's old letters. I didn't read it twice. I didn't need to transition to Act 4. The house grew colder each day, not in temperature, but in presence. Sabrina's clipped tones. Travis's silences. The way they moved through rooms without looking at me, like shadows, but the suitcase by my door no longer whispered. It waited, patient, ready, and so was I. Clapperboard ACT4, the breaking point. The snow had turned slushy by morning, a gray melt that pooled along the driveway edges. I watched it from the kitchen window while Sabrina clattered dishes too loudly behind me. Travis says the bank won't budge, she said flatly. We're running out of options. I didn't answer. She turned, one hand on her hip, the other clutching a cereal box. You know, most mothers would step up. Especially now, with a baby on the way. But you're what? Saving up for a hobby. Her words landed sharp, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I placed my teacup carefully in the sink and left the room without replying. The casserole dish. Later that afternoon, Travis came home earlier than usual. His tie hung loose, his eyes sunken. He saw the casserole dish drying on the rack, picked it up, and turned it over in his hands. "You made this for us," he said softly. "That night it was still warm when we got home. You've always been there. Always. So, why not now?" I looked at him. "Because being there stopped meaning something to you. It only meant something when it came with a check." His face tightened. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "It's honest." He slammed the dish down hard enough that the towel slipped from beneath it. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under." "Sabrina's," his voice faltered. "I'm doing this for my family." "So am I," I replied, the legal handover. The next morning, I sat across from Mr. Leland again. His office smelled faintly of varnish and lemon polish. "Everything's in place," he said, sliding a folder toward me. "By next week, the foundation will be official. The house, sold, proceeds locked. They'll have no access." My hand trembled slightly as I signed. Mr. Leland looked at me. "Meredith, this will hurt him." "I know," I whispered, "but enabling him has hurt him worse." He gave a small nod. "Sometimes mercy looks like cruelty." Sabrina's strike. That evening, Sabrina cornered me by the staircase. Her eyes were sharp, her voice low and cutting. "You think this makes you noble? Starving us out? You're jealous, that's all. You don't want to share. You'd rather hoard it until you die alone in some sterile place." I held her gaze. "This isn't about sharing. It's about survival." She scoffed. "Survival? You've had everything handed to you. You married into it, and now you want to play gatekeeper." I didn't respond. Some arguments weren't worth the breath, the explosion. It was late when Travis finally broke. We sat in the living room, the three of us, snow piling against the windows like a slow burial. He paced, rubbing his forehead. "The grant money, fine. The accounts, fine. But the house? This house is ours, Mom. I grew up here. You can't just..." Sabrina cut in, her tone sharp. "She's doing this to punish you. Don't you see? She's cutting us off to make herself feel powerful." Travis spun toward me. His face was red, his voice shaking. "You're just a wallet to us," he shouted. The words hit the room like a glass shattering on tile. Sabrina flinched. Even Travis looked startled by his own voice. I sat still, hands folded in my lap. "Finally," I said softly, "the truth." The silence afterwards stretched long and suffocating. Sabrina crossed her arms. Travis sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. The suitcase by the door. Later that night, I placed the suitcase upright by the front door. It didn't creak when I zipped it, it whispered. Departure. Upstairs, I heard Travis's muffled sobs. Down the hall, Sabrina scrolled her phone in angry silence, but I no longer felt like a ghost in my own home. I felt like someone who had finally stepped into the light, no matter how cold it was outside. Transition to Act 5. The next morning, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the doorway, my gloved hand resting on the strap of my suitcase. The snow outside was deep, unmarked. A blank page. Behind me, voices stirred upstairs, muffled, frantic, but I stepped forward, one careful foot after the other, leaving the house and them behind. Clapperboard ACT 5, the strategic pivot. The empty driveway. When I pulled out of the driveway that morning, the snow muffled everything. The house shrank in the rearview mirror until it was just a gray silhouette against a white horizon. I didn't look back. The road felt longer than I remembered, but lighter, too. My suitcase rode steady in the back seat. For the first time in months, no, years, I wasn't driving toward obligation. I was driving toward myself. Arrival at Skyview. Skyview wasn't much to look at from the outside. A low, brick building with windows framed in chipped paint. But inside, sunlight flooded the hallways, even in winter. People milled around with paint-stained aprons, cradling coffee mugs, laughing at inside jokes. IT smelled of turpentine and possibility. Nora, the program director, met me at the door with a hug that surprised me. "You made it," she said warmly. "We've been waiting." The word waiting felt like balm, and my room was small, but I didn't mind. The bed creaked. The desk was scratched. But the window overlooked a row of bare trees, their branches holding a dusting of snow like lace. I sat down, unzipped my bag, and placed the sketchbook on the desk. My fingers trembled, not from fear this time, but from anticipation. The first sketch. That night, I sketched until my wrist ached. The charcoal smudged my fingertips, darkened the edge of my sleeve. What poured onto the page wasn't polished, it was raw. Sabrina's sharp profile. Travis's slumped shoulders. My own reflection, drawn with lines too harsh and unforgiving. But then, softer strokes, an orchid, petals curved like open palms. When I finally closed the sketchbook, the room was quiet except for the radiator's hum. And for the first time in a long while, I felt like I could sleep without listening for footsteps in the hall. Back at the mansion. Meanwhile, at the house, chaos began its slow bloom. Travis found the bank's notice pinned to the kitchen corkboard. Final demand. His hands shook as he tore it down. Sabrina walked in, rubbing her stomach absently. "What now?" "She's gone," Travis muttered. "She left." Sabrina rolled her eyes. "Good. Now maybe she'll realize she can't just walk away and expect us to beg her back." But when Travis didn't answer, her voice wavered. "Right? She'll come back." Travis stared at the letter in his hands. For the first time, he wasn't sure. A call from Mr. Leland. 2 days later, my phone buzzed at Skyview. "Meredith." Mr. Leland's voice was calm as always. "They came to my office. Both of them. Accusations, shouting. I let them burn out." "What did you tell them?" I asked. "The truth. That the accounts are no longer theirs to access. That the foundation has full control." I closed my eyes, breathing slowly. How did Travis take it? Silence. Then, like a man realizing the floor beneath him has been hollow for years, I whispered, "Good." New routines, Skyview, days unfolded in rhythm. Morning walks in the crisp air. Afternoons spent sketching or helping set up exhibitions. Evenings gathered with others, painters, sculptors, writers, sharing stories that weren't veiled in manipulation. Nora often lingered near my work. "You have something to say," she told me once, tapping the edge of my orchid sketch. "Not just with words, but with lines. People will feel this." Her faith in me was both terrifying and healing. Sabrina's growing desperation. Back at the mansion, Sabrina's patience began to crack. She opened the fridge, half empty, slammed the door, and hissed, "Your mother's doing this on purpose. She's sitting somewhere laughing at us." Travis rubbed his temples. "You think she's laughing? She's not like that." "Then what is she? Heartless?" He didn't answer. The silence between them grew heavier by the day. The letter. A week into my stay, I received a letter slipped under my door. The handwriting was familiar, Travis's. "Mom, I don't know how to start. I don't know how to say I'm sorry without it sounding cheap. Sabrina says you're punishing us, but deep down I know this isn't about punishment. It's about you finally seeing me, seeing what I've become. I don't know how to fix this. Please, just tell me what to do." I held the letter until my hands trembled. Then I folded it back up and set it aside. Not yet, I thought. He wasn't ready. And neither was I. Small blossoms, weeks passed. My orchids at Skyview began to bud, tiny green shoots curving toward the light. Every morning, I checked them as though they were children. Fragile, but determined. One evening, Nora stopped by with 2 mugs of tea. "Funny thing about orchids," she said, smiling. "They thrive when neglected just enough. Too much water, too much attention, and they rot. But give them air, let them struggle a little, and they bloom stronger." I looked at her, the words settling deep. "Like people," I murmured, transition to Act 6. The mansion was crumbling under the weight of unpaid bills and frayed tempers. Sabrina's anger grew venomous. Travis looked hollow. And me? I was sketching orchids that finally bloomed, their petals wide and unapologetic. I knew then. The real revenge wasn't money withheld. It was becoming someone they couldn't diminish, someone who no longer needed their approval. The showdown was coming. But now, I was ready. Clapperboard ACT6, the downward spiral. Cracks in the foundation. The mansion didn't echo with laughter anymore. It echoed with unpaid silence. A final notice slapped against the front door one morning, bright orange against the frosted glass. Sabrina tore it down with trembling fingers. "Travis," she screamed. "Do you see this?" He lumbered into the hallway, eyes sunken. "I know. You know? Then do something. Call the bank, call your mother's lawyer, call—" He cut her off. "I've tried. Leland won't budge. The accounts are gone. It's over." Her face hardened.
No.
"You're just not trying hard enough." But in her voice, doubt had already taken root. Cut to Skyview, Meredith's morning. While Sabrina's rage reverberated through the mansion, I sat in the Skyview garden, sketchbook balanced on my knees. The sun broke gently through bare branches, painting gold streaks on my page. I was working on something new, not orchids this time, but faces. The women around me, Nora, Dolores, even the janitor, who always hummed while mopping. Lives that weren't transactional. Faces that carried stories instead of demands. Dolores walked by, carrying a tray of muffins. "I like the way you draw hands," she said offhandedly. I smiled. "Hands tell the truth. They don't lie as easily as faces." She smirked. "Then you'd better not draw mine." We laughed. The kind of laugh that doesn't cost anything. Sabrina's paranoia. The mansion. Sabrina paced the living room. The curtains were drawn tight, though no one was watching from outside. "She's doing this on purpose," she muttered. "She wants us to suffer." She's sitting somewhere, sipping tea, smiling. Travis looked up from the overdue bill in his lap. "You think she's smiling? You don't know her at all." Sabrina's eyes narrowed. "And you do? The woman abandoned us. She left you to rot." "No," he whispered, almost to himself. "She left me to learn." Sabrina scoffed, disgusted. But for the first time, Travis didn't argue. Cut to Skyview, the students' exhibition. The halls smelled faintly of cinnamon and pine. Students hung their canvases while holiday lights twinkled. Nora tugged my sleeve. "You're going to show one, right?" I hesitated. I don't know if I'm ready." "Then that means you are." Her conviction startled me. Later, I pinned my sketch of orchids to the board, my name signed in the corner, Meredith Langley. Seeing it there, surrounded by other works, was like inhaling after being underwater too long, and when someone paused in front of it, studying the strokes, I realized I didn't care whether they liked it or not. The point wasn't approval anymore. It was existence. Sabrina lashes out. Back at the mansion, Sabrina slammed a plate into the sink. It shattered. "This is your fault," she spat. "You and your bleeding heart guilt trips. If you'd fought harder, we wouldn't be living like this." Travis rubbed his temples. "Living like what? In a house we don't own? On money that was never ours?" Her mouth twisted. "It was supposed to be ours." "Supposed to," he repeated bitterly. She stormed out, the slam of the door rattling the chandelier. Meredith receives another letter. A folded paper lay outside my door at Skyview. "Mom, Sabrina's leaving more and more. I think she blames me. Maybe she's right. I don't know how to carry all this. I've been going to meetings. They help. But when I sit in the circle and say, 'My name is Travis,' I feel like a fraud. I keep waiting for someone to tell me I don't deserve to be here." I pressed the letter to my chest, eyes stinging. He was cracking open, but not yet through. And I knew I could not rescue him. This part, he had to rescue himself. Sabrina's final ACT of bitterness. One late night, Sabrina packed. Clothes crammed into bags, jewelry clinking as she shoved boxes into the car. Travis stood in the doorway, hollow-eyed. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere people don't let their mothers ruin them," she sneered. "And the baby?" His voice cracked. Her silence was sharper than any blade. She drove off, taillights swallowed by the night. For the first time in years, the mansion was truly quiet. Cut to Skyview, Meredith blooms. While Travis sat in his empty house, I stood at the Skyview podium, hands steady on the edge of the wood. Faces watched, kind and expectant. Nora beamed from the front row, that I cleared my throat. I used to think that starting over meant going back to who I was. But it doesn't. It means becoming who you were meant to be, after everything else stripped you bare. My voice didn't waver, and when the applause came, soft but steady, I let it wash over me. Not as validation, but as proof. I was here. I was alive. Travis's breakdown, alone in the cavernous mansion. Travis wandered the halls. Every corner reminded him of absence, of me, of Sabrina, of the life he had mistaken for permanent. He ended up in the nursery Sabrina had once painted. Empty now. Bare walls, a single rocking chair left behind. He collapsed into it, face buried in his hands, sobbing not like a man but like a child. Transition TO Act 7, AT Sky View. Orchids bloomed on my windowsill. At the mansion, walls echoed with Lost Point, two worlds moving in opposite directions, bound by blood and silence. But silence doesn't last forever. And soon, Travis would come looking for me. Not for money, not even for rescue, but for something harder, forgiveness. And that confrontation would decide everything. Clapperboard ACT 7. The confrontation. The knocked. It was a Tuesday morning when the knock came. I was arranging brushes in the Sky View art studio, the faint smell of turpentine mixing with chamomile tea from the lounge. The snow outside fell in sheets, muffling the world into silence. Another knock, heavier this time. Dolores poked her head in. Visitor for you. I frowned. Who? She tilted her head. You'll want to see for yourself. When I stepped into the lobby, I saw him. Travis. He looked nothing like the man who had ordered me out of my own kitchen. His coat was too thin for the weather, damp at the shoulders. His hair hung unwashed, eyes hollow, skin sallow. And yet, behind all of it, a flicker of something I hadn't seen in years. Humility. Mom. His voice cracked. For a moment I said nothing. I let the silence settle between us, heavy but necessary. The first words. We sat across from each other in the Sky View lounge. A fire snapped in the hearth, though neither of us warmed our hands. He stared at the floor. I don't know where else to go. I folded my hands in my lap. That's honest. At least. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. She's gone. Sabrina. Took the car, the baby stuff, everything. I think she never wanted me. Not really. I breathed slowly. And what did you want from me, Travis? Love? Or a wallet? His eyes lifted, red-rimmed. I know I said that. I was angry. Entitled. Stupid. I thought money meant you hadn't left me. And now. He shifted in his chair, shoulders shaking. Now I see it meant you were holding me hostage. And when you stopped, you set me free. I just didn't know what to do with it. The letter. I reached into the drawer beside me, pulled out the folded letter he had left at my door weeks ago. His eyes widened when he saw it. I kept it, I said softly. Not because I forgave you then, but because it told me there was still something worth saving. A spark. A man underneath the boy. He pressed his fists against his eyes. I don't deserve it. I don't deserve anything. Good, I said firmly. Because this isn't about deserving. It's about becoming. His confession. The words poured out of him then, raw and unpolished. I've been working nights at the warehouse. My hands, he showed me the calluses, raw and cracked. I never even knew what real work felt like. I was always waiting for the next check, the next handout. I thought you owed me. But you don't. You never did. He looked up, tears streaking his cheeks. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Not just for the words. For the years. For making you smaller in your own house. For letting her, his voice broke. For letting Sabrina throw away Dad's mug. For letting her erase you, piece by piece. I should have stopped it. I should have. I held up a hand. Stop. He froze, chest heaving. You can't rewrite what's already been done. You can only decide who you'll be now. The temptation, his voice dropped to a whisper. Can I come back? Not to live with you, but to see you? To have coffee? To try again? I studied him. Not the boy I raised, not the man Sabrina molded, but someone caught in between, trembling, wounded, but reaching. You can, I said carefully, but not as the son who thinks he owns me. Only as the man who respects me. His chin trembled. I'll try.
No, incorrecta.
You'll do. Or you won't. Trying was what you did when you wanted me to clean up after you. Doing is different. Meredith's power. Dolores passed by, pretending not to listen, but I caught her approving glance. I turned back to him. Understand this, Travis. I don't owe you forgiveness. I don't owe you shelter. What I give now, I give freely, not out of guilt. That's the only way it will mean anything. For the first time, he nodded, not resentful, not demanding, but accepting the embrace. Minutes passed in silence. The fire crackled. Finally, he leaned forward, hesitant, like a child again. Can I hug you? I studied him a moment longer. Then I stood, crossing the space between us. His arms went around me, fragile, trembling. Not the embrace of a man claiming, but of a son asking did I let him hold me, and only then did I let the tears fall. But they weren't tears of defeat. They were tears of release, the shift. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were clearer. I'll keep working, he said quietly. I'll keep showing up. Not for money.
For me.
And maybe for you too, if you'll let me. I nodded. We'll see. And that was enough. Transition to Act 8. Later that night, I returned to my suite. On my desk sat Nora's watercolor of the orchid, its petals open, fragile but enduring. I glanced at the folded letter in my drawer, now joined by something new, the memory of a hug that didn't erase the past but planted a seed for the future. Outside, the snow kept falling. Soft, unhurried, the storm had passed. But the rebuilding had only just begun. Clapperboard ACT 8, Rebirth. The quiet morning, the first morning after Travis's visit, I woke before dawn. The room was still and hushed, the kind of silence that feels like a second blanket. I padded to the window, pulling my shawl tight around my shoulders. Outside, Skyview's garden slept under a soft quilt of snow. A single lamplight glowed against the frosted glass, casting a halo into the dark. For the first time in years, I didn't feel dread at waking. No one waited downstairs to criticize the cedar smell, no one moving furniture as if auditioning my home for a real estate listing. No one standing in my kitchen calling my recipes dusty. I was free, and in that stillness, I realized something. Revenge hadn't just cut ties with those who diminished me. It had returned me to myself, the orchid. On my desk sat the orchid Nora had painted for me, soft blues and grays washed in watercolor. Next to it, the real orchid on my windowsill, delicate stem, a single bloom fully opened. I touched the glass of the frame gently. Still orchid, I whispered. The name she had given the painting, it was both stillness and survival. Not frozen, not forgotten, but holding on until the light returned. And the light had returned. Community. Later that week, Skyview buzzed with its small rituals. Dolores pinned another notice on the bulletin board. Holiday Wreath Workshop. Thursday, 3 p.m. Her handwriting was bold, looping, the kind that demanded attention. Better not skip it, she teased me when I passed. I'm keeping score. I smiled. You'll lose points for nagging. In the lounge, Nora was bent over her easel, soft curls falling into her face. She looked up when I entered. I saved this one for you, she said shyly on the canvas, an orchid again, but this time not alone. Two blossoms, one open, one beginning to unfurl. I swallowed hard. It's beautiful. It's you, she whispered. Not what you left. What you began. Something in me broke, but in the gentlest way. I squeezed her hand, and she smiled like I had given her the world. Giving back. That afternoon, I sat in the small library where residents often napped or played cards. A young staff member, Jamie, was shelving books, humming off-key. I noticed her glance toward the supply cabinet, where paper and brushes were stacked haphazardly. You paint? I asked. She nodded, embarrassed. A little. Not seriously. Bring something tomorrow, I said. We'll paint together. Her face lit up, a surprise she hadn't expected, and for the first time, I wasn't just receiving Sky View's warmth. I was returning it. A letter unfolds. That night, I opened the drawer by my bed and pulled out Travis's letter. The one where he wrote of blisters, of silence, of learning that love was not currency. I placed it beside my husband's old notes, scribbles from conferences, a postcard he once sent me with only 5 words. You are my North Star. Travis's letter didn't erase the years of pain, but it joined the lineage of something more important, proof that words could still change a life. The call. The phone rang just after dinner. It was Travis. Mom? His voice was quiet, steady. Yes. I wanted you to know I got a second shift. More hours. It's hard, but I'm doing it. I'm trying. There was a pause. He added, not for your approval, just for me. I closed my eyes. That's the only reason worth doing it. We didn't say much more. We didn't need to the ceremony. A week later, Sky View held its winter exhibition. The community hall was strung with paper snowflakes, knitted stockings, and the smell of cinnamon cider. Residents displayed their work: wreaths, quilts, pottery, and watercolors. Dolores nudged me toward the podium. Go on, she whispered. They're waiting. I stepped forward. Not as someone's mother. Not as someone's wife. But as Meredith Langley. Artist. Mentor. Myself. I used to think starting over meant going back, I told the crowd. But it doesn't. It means becoming who you were meant to be, after everything else has stripped you bare. The applause wasn't loud, but it was warm, and it wrapped around me like a quilt, symbolic closure. That evening, after the exhibition, I walked into the snowy garden. I carried a small orchid, fragile stem wrapped in cloth. The soil gave easily as I knelt, pressing my hands into the earth. I planted it gently, whispering a quiet prayer. Grow.
Survive.
Begin again. When I stood, Nora was there, silent but present. She reached for my hand, and together we looked at the small bloom against the dark earth. The old house, with its chrome toasters and erasures, was gone. This was home now. To transition to Act 9. Back in my suite, I sipped chamomile tea. Outside, carolers practiced in the distance. The orchid on my windowsill stood in full bloom. I no longer waited for anyone else to claim me. For the first time in my life, I had claimed myself, and that was the truest revenge of all. Clapperboard ACT 9 legacy. The final letter point. One evening, as winter gave way to spring, I sat at my desk and began to write. Not to Travis, not to Emily, not even to myself did I wrote to whoever might find these words one day. To the ones who feel erased in their own homes, diminished in their own families, silenced in rooms where they once belonged. If you're reading this, I wrote, know that you are not a ghost in your own life. You are not a burden, or an afterthought, or a shadow. You can choose again. You can claim again. You can begin again. The pen moved easily, as if I had been waiting years for this moment. I sealed the letter in an envelope and slipped it into the drawer beside the orchid painting. Someday, maybe Nora would find it. Maybe Jamie, the young staff member. Maybe no one. It didn't matter. The writing had freed me. The visit. Weeks later, Travis came to Sky View again. This time, he didn't arrive with excuses or polished speeches. He came in work boots still dusted with concrete, a thermos clutched in his hand. When I opened the door, he said simply, I thought you might like some coffee. We sat in the lounge together. He told me about the crew he worked with, about the way his hands were toughening, about the ache that felt honest. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He only asked, do you think Dad would be proud of me? I looked at him carefully, seeing the boy I had raised, the man he was trying to become. Yes, I said softly. But more importantly, you should be proud of yourself. For the first time, I think he believed it. The walk. In April, Sky View organized a walk through the garden paths. The air smelled of lilacs. Residents strolled arm in arm, pointing out new blossoms. I walked with Nora, her canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She showed me her latest sketch, Two orchids entwined, stems curved toward each other. "I think I finally understand what stillness is," she said. "It's not about stopping. It's about staying rooted, even when everything tries to pull you apart." I squeezed her hand. She had grown, too. Maybe that was the quietest revenge of all, that the pain I endured had planted something beautiful in someone else. The return to the house. One last time, I drove past my old house. The chrome toaster was probably gone by now, replaced with something trendier. The family photos were likely stored away in some unlabeled box. The garden beds I once tended had been redrawn into sharp lines of concrete, but as I sat there, I didn't feel loss. I felt distance. That house had never been my prison. My silence had been, and I was silent no longer. I whispered goodbye, started the car, and never looked back. The orchid blooms. BY summer. The orchid I had planted in Skyview's soil had flourished. 2 blossoms, then 3. Residents stopped to admire it on their morning walks. Dolores joked about crowning me the orchid queen. But to me, it was something deeper. That it was proof that beauty could rise in new soil. That roots could break free from clay pots and still survive. That survival was not the end, but the beginning, the final reflection. One night, I sat by the window, tea in hand, watching the fireflies blink in the warm dusk. I thought about everything: the humiliation, the erasure, the betrayal. I thought about the chrome toaster, the orchid, the house, the letters, and then I thought about now. My revenge, I whispered aloud, wasn't what I took away from them. It was what I gave back to myself. For the first time, I knew the truth. Revenge wasn't about punishing those who tried to erase me. It was about refusing to let myself disappear. I turned to the orchid on my sill, glowing faintly in the lamplight. "Still orchid," I murmured, "still here. Still blooming. Still mead." Epilogue: The Legacy. Months later, the staff at Skyview found my letter while reorganizing the library. Jamie read it quietly, then placed it in a frame on the bulletin board. Residents stopped to read it in passing. Some nodded. Some cried. Some simply touched the frame as they walked by, and so, my voice carried forward. Not silenced, not diminished, but shared. My story was no longer just mine. It had become a reminder that no one is just a ghost in their own life, that no one is just a wallet, or a shadow, or a burden, that revenge, at its truest, is choosing yourself when no one else will, and in that legacy I bloomed again.